So I'm just getting my cards ready too. Perfect. I'm almost ready here. And then we can get on. So last class we went up to the sixes. Okay, let's see what I have. There we go. We got our eights. There we go. Nines. Oh, I'm missing a 9. And I gotta go through all of these looking for a 9. Do I have all my 10s? Yeah. Oh, found it. Yes. Okay. So now that you have all of those cards, we're going to do aces all the way to the 10s. You are going to want to separate the 7s, the 8s, the 9s, and the 10s. So do that while I start the session, because you can just kind of listen to me while you're separating the 7s, 8s, 9s, and 10s. And then you'll have a little deck left that are all the major arcanas and the pages, knights, queens, and kings. Okay. So last class we came up to the 6s. Whoops. Got my stuff upside down. And it's always important that even if you don't feel like pulling cards, that you shuffle them at least once a day. Like sometimes when I'm watching TV, I'll just shuffle them, and it gives them that attention and that connection, and it's always building. And as you connect with your cards each day, or whenever you use them, you're going to realize that they feel different. Mine gets so magnetized that it's like it sticks together, and I can just grab the top thing, and they're all sticking together. So that adds power to our cards, okay? And it's really important to do that. So we're going to start with the 7s. So up until now, we have the force of nature, that the new beginning and the actual creation of something through the aces. And once that creation comes to our planet and into our life, we are now then going into the 2s, where we're balancing that manifestation on every level. And you want to remember that in these cards so far, we are dealing with 4 suits. The cups, which also represent the hearts in the regular pack of cards, and that represents emotions, spirituality, intuition, and also hidden things, okay? So healing, family, past. And then we also have the swords. And the swords all represent the mental mind. They represent direction, decisions, and challenges. Okay? So that's important for you to remember. And then we have, and the swords are actually the spades in the regular pack of cards. And then we have the wands or the staves. And they represent, actually no, I'm sorry, the swords represent the diamonds in the regular pack of cards. The wands represent the spades. And the wands represent our future path. It represents how and what things we need to bring into our life. And they represent opportunities. So what we do for a living and how we actually live our day-to-day life. Okay? And our fulfillment and wholeness to that. And then we have the pentacles. And the pentacles represent our physical well-being. They represent our stability, our strength, our money, and also our physical life, our health, and anything tangible that we're asking the cards. Okay? But basically, when we see the pentacles in a general reading, it represents their physical life and their connection and mastery to it. So in all of these suits, there is a journey of the fool. And that goes from the aces of the beginning to our human creation with all of these things up until the tens. When we become a queen of each suit, we've mastered every one of those cards up until the queen. So that is a whole spiritual pathway when it comes to body, mind, spirit, and then we move on to the real masteries of it, which are the universal cards and the major arcanas. So the twos are balancing out that creation and how we're handling this new thing. The threes represent the stabilization and the growth that we got it. We get to start seeing some growth and stability. And the fourth is that harmony and experiencing more of it. And then we get to the fives, which represent the halfway point. And it's always challenging and conflicting. And we do need to master that and deal with that conflict so that we can actually reach a new state of being, which becomes that path from the 60% being finished the certain journey in action to the tens, which means it's done. Okay? So fives are always halfway through the journey of whatever the cards are tapping into. And when you see sixes and above, you know that there's higher learning and higher connection, and they're more of a spiritual person. Okay? And that they're actually coming to they're walking the future path to the end and the manifestation that's going to occur. Okay? So today so last class we finished with the sixes, which represented, again, getting that balance like in the beginning of the twos, but more on a mastery level because we actually dealt with the conflict. We healed the conflict that we've always had in our path, and now we have the strength to move forward. And if that conflict ever showed up again, we know how to take care of it really easy. And up to that point, we're able to understand all of these other things and how we connect with it in life and use it. Okay? So sevens are awesome. So whenever I see sevens, the seven cards always represent transformation and real, actual, easier change. When we're in the sevens in any journey, we get to start experiencing that momentum that takes us to the finish line. And we're more connected to the universal forces and also ourself. Okay? So the sevens, take out your sevens and line them up. So the sevens of the tarot provide interesting concepts. And all of the sevens represent, if you look at them and place them, you'll see the direction they're all facing. And remember, in every card, if they're facing left, of you, then, or going to the left, then you know that they're still looking at the past. You'll see in the wands that that person is in the present, and you'll see in the 7 of cups that person is facing the future but looking up at the spirit. So every card shows you a direction of what the influence is tapped into in that person. And I can tell right there, or this is a past issue, or this is still happening because of the past. So you always want to take a look at the direction of the person. You'll also see that all of these cards in this suit, or in the 7s, are all male. So you know this is a real male energy force that we also need to connect with. And it will bring up, and usually if it's a woman in the reading and these come up, it will represent a male in their life. You'll also notice on these cards that they all may have different hair colors. One is blonde, one has black hair, one is more salt and pepper, and one you can't even tell. They're so shadowed out. So imagery in those characteristics are important in the cards. So in your readings this week, take note on the characteristics of what they look like. Are they blonde? Are they brunettes? And the suit and the role that they're playing. And you'll be able to see where they are coming in your life. Okay? So the 7s represent interesting concepts. And by now, the person is able to get a feel for the card's meaning by the pictures. One of the 7s represent re-evaluation and reassessment. One symbolizes dreaminess and indecisiveness. Another is confrontation, and yet another depicts betrayal and theft. So were you able to see those in the 7 cards? So let's move on to the 7 of Wands. So just remember, the 7s represent the ending of a cycle and the unfolding of the soul. And that's why you have to remember this is a transformational card, because the unfolding of the soul is coming forward. And how these ideas are expressed in the Tarot of 7s shows us. It also shows us how each of these cycles are going to end. Okay? So the 7 of Wands, this is what it looks like right now. And the 7 of Wands is a major theme. It represents the character in the card on higher ground. So they're standing above all of the other people holding their wands. So below the surface that you can't see, each one of those wands has someone standing and holding them. Okay? And the character in the card is on higher ground and is confronting all of these other people. Okay? So it shows it is a confrontation. There's opposing circumstances. They're coming from below. And he has to maintain himself because he is on higher ground. And his vantage point is going to give him the position that he needs. So it shows a success is coming. And the 7 of Wands, it represents the person is feeling very deeply about what they are confronted with. So this is a passionate, purposeful, and destined situation that will better his path in the future. It also will have to do with his career and what he's meant to doing because there's so much purpose involved. So he's experienced ups and downs until then. Things have been very difficult, but he's still attempting to fulfill it. So it represents that he has great significance and meaning in where he's headed, and he is on the right track. And that these people that are below him will get to experience his growth and see where he goes. So the fight gets easier at this point. And it represents that you can expect the situation to become easier, that there is a lot going on, and it could be 7 different people in their, or 6 different people in their life all going in different directions and they're trying to fix everyone. Or it could represent all of the opposing energies. But what it represents is that the confrontation that's taking place and all of the distractions that are happening now are going to settle. And it's going to be successful, and they have to keep going, that this was a competition, and they have the vantage point. If this card comes up upside down, then that represents there's no confrontations, that the person is still dealing with adverse challenges, or they could be disturbing challenges or conditions, but the confrontation, there won't be any confrontations. It usually means that it had to do with them not acting. So inaction shows with it upside down, and it represents that there isn't any conflict. So it is actually a good sign when it's upside down. A lot of times people will get this when they have the wrong perception of their challenges, or if they are taking too much on and they don't need to. Okay? So let's go next to the 7 of Cups. This is one of my favorites. And whenever spirit is present in the room, this card comes up. So even though I'm going to talk to you about the meaning of it, always take note, there is a spirit around. And one of the cups in the card is going to represent the spirit around. So you want to make sure you take the time to see which one is getting your attention. So in the 7 of Cups, it represents the motivation and direction of the seeker, and they're not quite sure where and how they should act or choose. It's like they see all these cups as options, but really they're not. They are options, but they're guided options. All of them are options, but he's indecisive about his desires. So each cup refers to a different choice of lifestyle and the motivation behind it. Okay? So he could go towards life battles and win glory in competition, and that would be the wreath and the skull in the cup. He could go into temptation and jealousy, which represents the snake and the dragon in the cup. Or he could go to the foundation behind his choice, wealth and securities indicated by the home and jewels may draw him, or his dreams and ideals of the opposite sex are also pursuits indicated in the corner cup with the female head. On the other hand, the head could mean the unfolding of his spiritual nature, the virtuous character he may discover himself to be. The point of this card is that none of the options is being chosen. Therefore, we have the interpretation of confusion and indecision. Perhaps it's because he's not yet come to know himself or his true needs. So this is an important card when it comes up. The soul is the center cup, which represents, that's that one, so the cloaked veiled figure is his soul. And we view it as the cloaked figure. This heart represents harmony restored and is assured, and now that the seeker's soul is crying out for unfoldment, family life and the home are now settled, leaving room for the seeker to grow in a new direction, his soul's direction if he chooses. Other dreams of attainment compete for his attention, and he may ignore spiritual growth for more earthly goals. The 7 of Cups can signify that the seeker has illusions and fantasies about handling situations correctly or victoriously when in reality they are not. A lack of practicality and wasting time in dreaming rather than action is also suggested. Indulging in the worlds of unreality or escapism, television, books, alcohol, influences like that, leading to anything that is excess, would also represent in this, depending on the other cards that are around it. But when you're doing a psychic reading, it represents significant dreams and visions trying to come through. Okay? So whenever this comes up, the main guidance is they need to pay attention to their dreams and their visions. Something is trying to come through. And it represents changing. Something that needs to change. Okay, so psychic vision is trying to come through, and it's his own illusions that's blocking it. And you would see by the other cards what influences are in play. Okay, or you'll just see this card and the spirit in the other cards making itself present. But either way, you want to tell him that the spirit is trying to influence. When this card is upside down, it represents that the opposition of indirection is creating new goals and ventures. So whatever they're going into, this is something that's going to change. Okay, there's new opposition. There's also new goals and ventures that are coming, and they will be followed through. It shows that they did make a good choice from all of the possibilities, and the individual has set their mind on something. So whenever this is reversed, they did make a good choice. Okay? So the Seven of Swords, whenever I see the Seven of Swords, I think of like the biggest snake I've ever met. And we all have one of those. Okay? And the thing is when I'm telling you what these cards represent and the emotions behind it, you may have flashes of people coming into your mind. And that's very important, because when you flip up these cards for a client and someone pops into your mind, then that represents the characteristic of the person the spirit is trying to get you to describe. Okay? So the Seven of Swords represents self-betrayal and becoming one's own worst enemy. And it's because of the swords, right? The mind, the intellect. Often the person may be unaware of this, but they're unconsciously creating circumstances of failure that bring about self-defeat. And perhaps the soul's lesson in this card is about being one's own worst enemy through thoughts and restrictions. So negative, aggressive behavior and attitudes are getting in their way. And that's something you want to say whenever this comes up. There's negative things getting in the way. And whenever you're doing readings for yourself and this comes up, you're getting in your own way. So this also represents that negative attitude or behaviors that are getting in the way, but also need to be worked out because it's affecting their soul, and this cycle is ending. So it is coming to a place where they need to make a decision and end this mental game playing they're having with themselves, because their soul is the one that's urging them to fight this mentally. So the Seven of Swords always brings renewed battling and problems after the journey away from troubles. So you get that extra strength until you make that decision. So it's always important whenever something conflicting comes up, you just get through it as fast as you can, so we don't get to that point where it starts to feel heavy. So it represents old actions, it represents taking advantage of the situation, or trying to mold and control natural forces, which you can't. So it's the mind. It's the person refusing to face the outcome of premeditated actions. So this card will also represent cheating and theft. So when I know myself and I know that I don't have any of these negative intentions, but this card comes up, then I always know that this is a warning card, that there is someone around me that is trying to take something from me. Even if it's an idea, it will show up in the cards. So cheating, sabotage, even sabotaging a marriage or partnership or a reputation or career, that's what this represents. It also represents an actual theft that can occur. So when I see this come up, it's a warning sign. This represents a victim being the victim or also being the one who's victimizing. Okay? And again, we see the character in the card stealing, but this time the theft occurs without the victim's knowledge. The people in the background of the scene are occupied with other matters of battle. So they're not even paying attention to this person, and while they're busy, someone's taking advantage of their preoccupation, using that time to ruin, betray, and slyly steal. In the Five of Swords, the battle was open and the opponents came face to face. But the damage is done when the seeker's not looking. So this can also come up when people are self-sacrificing. Say they have someone that they're taking care of financially, and when this card comes up, it means that they are giving too much and that person is taking advantage of it. Okay? So I've seen this card come up with my son at times when he's needed help, and then I find out, that somebody he didn't need as much as he needed, and, got to enjoy pizza and, all the pleasures of life. So when this comes up, it's a warning sign, right? And it's telling you to take a look at stuff. And it could also mean self-betrayal. So it represents a warning not to trust the circumstances of people involved or your mind if it's you, and it shows something being taken from someone that no one has the right to take. Okay? And this should represent contemplation and performing and taking a look at stuff. So this is a shifting card. When it comes reversed, it represents an apology card. And credit is given where this energy has been taken. So if you do a reading and you've had a fight with someone and you want to know, are they genuine? Is this authentic? Is this really the ending of this conflict? And this comes up upside down. It's a definite yes. So it represents that there is credit given where it's due, and what has been taken is being brought back. Okay, so this is the solution card. This also represents appreciation is due and is given. So there is an unexpected blessing that will come from it. It's a card of capability, constructive advice, and the seeker should become their own best friend by making positive, helpful choices. So this is a better card when it's reversed. Let's go to the Seven of Pentacles now. And yes, you're going to get a transcript of this, so you don't have to try to write notes and that sort of thing, okay? So the Seven of Pentacles represents a sense of failure and dissatisfaction. So when you look at that, you're going to want to take note. In your card, you may see, and you should see, two different shoes on the person. They're actually two different colors. And then there's going to be two piles of the pentacles, okay? So this card, when it comes up, and it's a gray card, you'll see that it's gray in color. So whenever this card comes up, you have to understand that the person has felt a sense of failure and dissatisfaction from what they've been trying to pursue. Something has grown through the seeker's efforts, as it represents the growing on all the pentacles growing on the vine, but he's worked hard and seen the results, and he is not satisfied. Perhaps his desires and motivations have changed. He no longer wants what he's been working on. This vine and its growth can represent years of the seeker's effort. It can be concerning career. It can be concerning marriage. It can represent anything in physical life, okay? It can represent inheritance. So something, possessions, relationships, finances, but something extremely important is missing in this card. And it's the sense of commitment or completion. So they've achieved results, but they may not want to pursue their goal any further. The soul may be prodding him towards a higher life with his career, new material and educational and spiritual goals, maybe his urge right now. So this is a change card. If this is, should I do this, and this comes up, that's a good sign, okay? So this card is the contemplation of possibilities as far as the situation has developed. So in a health reading, the 7 of cards will come up a lot, and it can indicate that the internal malfunction of an organ, or there's a problem with the body systems through infections and imbalances. So something needs to be balanced out, and that's the issue. It also represents a sense of dissatisfaction about their life in general. And you'll see by the other suits that are around it where that dissatisfaction is, okay? So if there's wands around this card, then you know it has to do career. If it's cups, then you know it's dissatisfaction in relationships, okay? So there's dissatisfaction. However, he compares his present position to where his goals should have taken him by now. He wanted to achieve more, and he may choose not to continue. Some results have materialized concerning a financial or career-related project. So whenever this card comes up for me, I know, okay, I need to change something. There's something not right. It's not going to give me the satisfaction that I'm going to put my heart and work into. Okay, and I might need to take what I've gotten from there, and take it all and shift it into something entirely new. When this card comes up reversed, then it represents the 7 of Pentacles indicates money worries, debts, mortgages, loan payments. Concern about them keeps the situation where they can no longer desire to be. So this time their efforts have brought little result, and there is loss that will occur. Health warnings will still apply as the same meaning upright, and there is disillusionment with life. So when this card comes up upside down, then you know that it's actually getting pretty difficult for them. And they may be at a place where they're losing their home, or they're losing something that they're losing control of. Now, all of these cards, when you see something like this upside down, you always want to ask, how can we fix this? How can we improve this situation? Until you get the positive cards that show what action can be taken. Because it could just be a change in the way they think, or one simple little shift, and it could change their entire life. So whenever cards come up reversed, you always, and it's not a solution, you always want to ask, where is the solution? How can we fix this? We are not manifestors of negative things, but when we recognize a block in someone's life, then that's when we want to look into it further and receive the cards. And that's what's awesome about the minor arcana cards. We're able to change things if they're in the minor arcana cards. If they're not minor and they're in the major section, we can't touch it. We can't change it. But if it's from 0, from aces to 10s, we can change whatever we want. Okay? So let's go into the 8s. Okay? And the 8s I love, because to me the 8s always represent blessings coming, and we get to start to experience that. And so take your 8s out and line them up. And before I go on to the 8s, you have to remember the mastery card of all the 7 of suits. So once we attain the mastery and got those energies in our soul, spirit, and mind, it is the Chariot card, right? So the Chariot card is that transformation from, and you see on the Chariot, they always have a black and a white lion or sphinx or horses, and that represents the human aspect merging with their soul. Okay? So lay your 8s out, and if you see the 8s, look at the directions they're going in. And you'll see there's one in the present, blindfolded. You'll see there's one that's walking into the future. There's one that is working at something, right, that's lined up, but he's facing the future. And then you have one that possibly doesn't have anybody in it. The 8 of Wands. And if you look, mine has no people in it. It's just a bunch of wands coming down from the sky. Okay? So the 8s always represent balance, success, and power. So to me, this is like a power card, just like the aces. I know that there's higher realms in play. There's spiritual power. So remember the conflict and the confrontation in the 7 of Wands. In the 8, the opposing wands have been removed. So in the 7 of Wands, the person was on higher ground. And they were above everyone else, but still involved with all of those distractions and people. Well, now they have been removed. And all you see are all of the wands that are falling down. So all of the confronting energies have been removed, symbolizing the ending of opposition and the freedom to move forward with blessings. The conflict has been resolved through the seeker's energy and purpose in fighting for the venture's survival. Now the rewards are swift progress and fast results. The 8 of Wands is the green light. All systems are a go, and the seeker is aiming towards the objective, and its destination is clear. So their ideas, their dreams, their expectations, everything they're going for is rapidly on their way to becoming a reality. So this is always a blessings card. And it's always manifestation. And more than one. Okay? So a goal is being reached through devotion, through dedication, through just holding that purpose and faith. And sometimes this devotion is loving in nature too. It's emotional, and that's why it's purposeful. So when this card comes up, it expresses dedication, moving in the right direction, that there is a loving energy around, a supportive energy, and it's usually a spirit that is in play. It also represents love that can be felt towards the venture. So it's awesome. If it represents, skills, and it's, should I do this is for a living, then yes. So someone that's into sports, they're going to, get to the Olympics. So this always represents physical fitness and anything physical that's moving forward as well. So exercise begins to take effect. Healing starts to take effect. Whatever they're looking at, whatever they're asking about, and whatever is surrounding the card is taking effect in a positive way. It also represents travel. So if someone says to me, oh, I wonder, am I going to go on a trip this year? And that they always ask, this card comes up, yes you are, it's going to be by air. They're going to fly somewhere. And then by the layout, you'll be able to see where in those 12 months that comes up. Or if they ask, it'll tell you, you'll know within the 12 months. Now, if we see the 8 of Wands upside down and all those blessings are now going up, okay, so now, or falling from the earth, right? So when it's reversed, it represents obstacles, it represents fighting and fighting forces of nature. So there is a forcing issue that shouldn't be forced, okay? And that's what it means. And this card can mean violent attempts. It can represent, especially if you see a king or a knight with it, then it can actually represent situations going to a violent place. So a lot of times when it's reversed, you'll get the kings, you'll get queens, you'll get knights, you'll get the tower, and sometimes you'll even get the aces. And if the aces come up with this reverse, then it's really bad. Okay, so that represents that they need to totally change the way they're seeing things because they're manipulating and pushing things against nature, and it's only going to produce worse effects. So if someone says, should I be with someone and this comes up upside down, or is this person my soulmate, and you get this with a 3 of swords and an upside down Ace of Cups, you'd be like, no. Okay? And you could tell them why and what it is. And you could also say, could this be changed? Okay? So the other thing is, when it's reversed, something is being interfered and there's a negative thing in play. Okay? So the the 8. We're going to the 8 of Cups now. So the 8 of Cups represents family and materialism and have been the major considerations of the character in the 8 of Cups. So carefully stacked, you can see all the cups are stacked up on top of each other. They're carefully stacked that way for a reason, and it represents their consciousness and what they're attempting. So there is a gap in the cups. And that represents things that are missing from the seeker's life. So those represent the meaningful things that they're going after so that they can get the wholeness that they want. Okay? And a lot of us have that. We feel like there's something missing, and that's our spiritual purpose that, carries us along, always moving forward. So it's the mystery of the missing piece. And that's why you'll also see the moon in the symbol as well. So it represents wearing a red cloak, represents they're turning their back on the cups that signify their present situation, and they're beginning a quest to something new. They feel like they need to start something new. So there's something that is more personally fulfilling, and that could have to do with family. It could have to do with a spiritual talent. It could represent money or fulfilling security. But it represents moving forward, and it does have purpose. Perhaps the person has finally chosen to pursue their own soul, taking the option in the 7 of the Cups. The moon in this card symbolizes cycles. When we see it full, indicating that the attainment and waning or decreasing, suggesting a decline of the fulfillment in the material of life. So what that means is recognize the moon in that card. It shows the waning and the full. And around the card, moving forward, you're going to notice whether the card is going up in numbers to 9, 10, and into the majors, or is it dropping in numbers, going down to like 4s and 3s. Okay, so it also represents not, so you want to pay attention to that. And it represents a cycle. So there has been abandonment for good purpose. And it represents finding their enchantment. It represents a power pursuing their own spiritual and soul purpose. So it's a very spiritual card because of unsatisfaction and also knowing that there is something missing that they need to find. A lot of times this represents emotional disappointment in relationships too. So if cups come around it, you would know it's family or relationship. If it's wands around it, it's work. They're dissatisfied and they need more. So maybe something needs to be added to it. Now when this card is reversed, it represents enjoying life's bounty. There's feasting, there's family, there's friends, social involvements. It represents parties, okay? And a new relationship may be part of the abundance. This also represents a social time with new acquaintances. It represents new love. So when it's reversed, it's an awesome card. And it represents satisfactory circumstances bringing enjoyment. Now when we look at the Eight of Swords. The Eight of Swords is a blindfolded woman. And it represents, and if you look at her, you'll notice that little pond of water that's underneath her feet. Okay? So the woman is blindfolded. She stands along a series of swords. If she could lift her blindfold and look into the marshy waters beneath her, her reflection would be unclear. The Eight of Swords has power, relating to the number of 8, feeling restricted. The seeker does not recognize their own power to think or act. She allows others to interfere with her thinking and decision-making while her own true needs are not being met. They're being ignored. Her once powerful actions are now fraught with indecision. Perhaps her excessive need for success and power and her aggressive actions toward achieving them have brought her to this present place. Fear of taking a stand, speaking up for themselves, making decisions are all manifestations of this card. The seeker has been afraid of the choice for quite some time and can't see the way out until he or she gets out of their mental mind. They need to stop the way they're thinking and they need to attain a mental freedom. And once they attain mental freedom, this card will appear as a positive influence. So they need to break free from something. And it indicates feelings of feeling imprisoned, but the mental bondage is usually self-inflicted because there's always a way to act. And when this comes up, then you know you have to take action. It just feels stronger than it is. There is a way out. Now when this card is reversed, the Cage, it represents the woman flying free. The thinking process is cleared, their interference is decreased, action can be freely taken. So this represents being unbound, is finally free, they're released, and they're going to feel it. So the Eight of Swords, the bondage card upside down is the good meaning for that one. Okay? And usually when that comes up, it just represents you need to help them break free of how they've been seeing things so that they can take action. Because a lot of people get stuck in mental loops and they can't find their way out. Now the Eight of Pentacles. So the Eight of Pentacles, you can see on mine, he is working on stuff. He's got his pile of work and it's getting stacked. So the person in this card, when this card comes up, it represents desires of education, self-discovery, training for a job, studying something. But it represents the possibilities. And all of those pentacles in the cup are possibilities. It could be a relationship, it could be a project, it could be his finances. But the character in the card is an apprentice learning something, and it represents that money and stability will exist because of it. So the seeker may be meeting influential people, they may put their foot in the right door, they may apply for the right position. The connection made and the skills acquired can be capitalized. So whenever this comes up, there's money right there to be made. Who they are, where they are, what they've been, seeing. It can also represent them, in the Seven of Pentacles, they wanted to give up their enterprise and they wanted to try something new or attempt something different. Well, this is the individual realizing that to achieve power in life, he must better himself. So being practical, he diligently set out to improve himself and to enhance his financial and economic life, okay, or his future. Motivated by money and material goods, he applies his efforts towards apprenticeship in a trade or profession. He is learning financial skill in handling money and becoming qualified for this purposeful work. Now, when this card is upside down and reversed, that means that the circumstances within and outside prevent the pursuit of ambition. So the sincerity and craftsmanship witnessed in the upright position is nowhere to be found. The individual is not very good at what he or she does. They may be frustrated. The seeker's ethics have become unglued. Talents and skills remain, but may now be put into devious use. Forgery, embezzlement, swindling, dishonesty, fraud, cheating. This all represents that upside down. So unfortunately, the seeker's overweening ambition may have caused him to become corrupt and to manipulate his way to the top. This also can represent strings being pulled, favors happening, but it always represents forgery, cheating, and manifestations of negative things because of it. So it's a warning card when it's upside down. And whenever you ask about people, if this comes up, it is definitely a warning sign. Okay, so, or the other thing is, it could also be wasting time. A lot of times this will represent someone wasting time and losing the potentials around them. Okay? So let's go to the nines. So we might run over about 5 to 10 minutes, okay? If that's okay. Because I want to do the nines. I thought we might be able to get to the 10s. So put your 9s out. And of course the Mastery of the 8s is the Strength card in the Major Arcana. So the 9s. And if you lay your 9s out, oops, mine were underneath. You'll see what positions they're sitting in. So we have 3 cards sitting in the present position and 1 card in the forward position, but in the 9 of Swords. So this guy is moving forward, but look at all of his minds going through him. That represents all the stress. But, oh no, the wand's looking at the past. So my wand guy is looking in the past. So 9 is the number of attainment. So whenever 9s come up, they're like 90% done the journey. There's just one more thing left to do to reach the mastery of whatever topic is at hand. So 9 is the number of attainment. And it's the number about to reach completion in the 10, suggesting the idea of the cycle is nearing the end. In the nines, we find some problems and difficulties are about to complete their job of bringing prosperity or destruction. Okay? So the Nine of Wands, if you look at that guy, the 9 is shown as a defense card. This one. So the one with a bandage and all of those, that's a defense card. And the individual in this card stands in a guarded position. His expression is wary, and his head bandages reveal a battle he's had before. He protects his rights through being prepared to defend and fight. He may have to contend again before the situation is finished. Often this card will appear when the seeker may have to handle another round of contention. So whenever this comes up, there's one more challenge that he has to deal with. Okay? And it is something that he has dealt with before. It can occur in many different situations in life. But it's an easier thing to get done. And it's just one. So I always tell my person whenever I'm reading them or whenever I'm looking at it for myself, that when it appears, it represents a present situation of that last thing. Just get it done. Remain watchful. Take control of it. The difficulty isn't difficult. It's just one thing. And you know, we always get that test whenever we're going to receive something good. Just before we receive that good thing, there's always something bad that tries to get in our way. It's like what? Newton's law? I don't know what it is. Murphy's law? Newton's. Either way, that happens. That's what this card represents. Don't quit before the miracle occurs. Okay? So here, they're defending their territory. They're ready for their last battle. And then they get to experience the protection shield on them. But this does represent the last battle because mastery is next. So once they reach mastery of this, they'll never have to deal with these things again. It's like you know how it won't even come to you. The law of attraction, is protecting that from you. So always let them know one more thing to be done, and then you get to experience a good thing. When you see this card reversed in the Nine of Wands, it represents obvious opposite, weakness and the inability to stand up for their rights. And it represents that this person was caught off guard and hit below the belt. So something affected them and brought them down. So they should have been more alert and cautious, or they ignored the guidance that they were receiving about the person or situation, and they dealt with it wrong. So they self-sacrificed themselves in some way. They were allowed to be dominated or overwhelmed by fear. So this represents, whenever this comes down, something is not right. It's obvious. They need to and you need to just tell them, this is something that you need to change. So tell them that they need to get back on guard. They need to deal with the situation, end it, so that they can attain what's next. And it's all about self-assertiveness. So it's telling them to be assertive. Their obstacle could beat them if they don't shift. So the Nine of Cups. And you'll see that here's the Nine of Cups. The guy's sitting there, and all those drinks on the table are surrounding him. And it always reminds me of someone that's able to just have all they can drink, right? They're happy, they're satisfied, they're sitting contentment, and all of those cups represent the good fortune. So the Nine of Cups has attained sensual happiness. This is the wine, the women, the song, the party, and it suggests good times. It suggests good fortune and enjoyment of life. It also represents a traditionally, it's the wish card. So it's promising the person who's doing the reader fulfillment of their desires. So whatever it is, when this card comes up, there is something that they want to happen and is going to. If it's a health card reading, it represents good health, and also it represents financial well-being. It means life is being enjoyed, but in moderation. Okay? When this card comes up upside down, the seeker is experiencing dishappiness. Okay? And their pleasures are becoming lost. Maybe there's overindulgence. They've gone too far. It could be drugs. It could be a state of financial loss, or they're experiencing a health issue. Maybe it's money. Time and talents are being wasted, and it represents a wasted time, so they need to back up, slow down, and get out of gluttony. So just remember that it represents going too far, okay? Usually, greed is the key word when the 8 of Cups, or the 9 of Cups is upside down. So the 9 of Swords. Here's the 9 of Swords. And this one, you can always tell when this comes up, it's true. They are having trouble sleeping. I've never had anyone tell me that they're sleeping fine when this card comes up. So the 9 of Swords is about to reach ruin in the 10 of Swords. Perhaps the crying woman knows the end of her situation is coming, and she's growing sleepiness with worry and despair. Those around her have experienced great losses and setbacks as well. Anything attained has been forfeited. The swords hang above her, representing all the past conflict. Astrological trends are against her, symbolized by the quilt embroidered with astrology symbols. In alternate squares, we see the red roses, symbolizing her desires, attached to the squares of astrology or negative forces, indicating a desirable, undesirable outcome concerning her state of affairs. So at the base of her bed, there's a fight that's carved into the wood, and it shows one soldier defeating the other. Again, we see life's battles in the Suit of Swords. This time, failure and mental anguish of the victim is shown. The crying woman may have watched a loved one lose, or may have been part of the battle herself. Perhaps she's been victimized, or maybe she has been the victimizer. In either case, mental cruelty and guilt are the result. So whenever that comes up, you know that they have been experiencing some really difficult stuff. And if you look at mine, you can see that fight in the bed. Okay? So this is a time where we know we have to help them. Okay? So the person that we're doing the reading for, or if it comes up in ourselves, we're in a state of despair, and we must be told not to feel entirely at fault for what has happened. The suffering is a terrible mental torment. It represents guilt, depression, anxieties, and is often influenced by an estranged loved one or a cruel person in the seeker's life. It can represent threats, accusations, and having too great of an influence. Maybe they've lost self-respect. Confusion and self-hatred are in play as a result of this inner turmoil. So when this is a serious card, so whenever I see this, I always ask, how can we get them out of this state? This card has come up, and sometimes this comes up in the future as a warning card. So then we can say, I see something coming up that's really going to get you mentally. So let's see what it is and what we can do to change it. Okay? When this card is reversed, then it represents there's resolve. So resolution in the pain and it represents hope, new faith, and time helping the seeker heal from situations. So it's a healing time. It also represents pain, loss, and suffering being healed from the past and the way they have been affected. So I always let them know that this is a healing card, that they are still in a healing place, and that they have to be patient but have faith and see how this problem is getting better. So we'll get to the last card, which is the 9. So the 9 of Pentacles. And the 9 of Pentacles is one of my favorite cards. So this comes up a lot for me whenever I'm asking if I should do a certain class or write about something, or something I want to make money on. Should I go to bingo? Should I go to the casino? So this card is a card that means attainment. And it represents a garden that has been growing really well. The grapes symbolize fruitfulness. There's trellis, cultivation. The character in the card has worked for these achievements and has been conscientious and careful with everything they're doing. So they get to experience financial gain. There's an increase in security, stability, self-reliance, and independence are the results. So self-confidence and the ability to know what is best indicates the wisdom in this card to follow through with action. So whatever is in play right now is going to be very beneficial. The bird symbolizes the mind and its wisdom, and the individual controlling and training the bird that is teaching it how to think wisely. So they're working together, the air spirits, the birds, and the person. In employment readings, this card represents an independent working situation. So a lot of times it will be an entrepreneurial. This comes up, you're meant to do something or create something. And so everything is in control. You can do whatever you want when this card comes up. It's going to be beneficial. When it's reversed, then the card represents deprivation. So there's, so it represents loss, and it indicates that most of the situation that they're talking about is foolish, and it was unwise action that is going to even take it further. So they're ignoring their inner voice. They're not listening to their intuition, so they're going to lose out. So they're basically not listening to themselves, and they're going to fall because of it. So I always tell them when it's reversed, your intuition is trying to guide you to a financial gain or a stable path. It's really important that you pay attention and listen to it. And you could usually tell why they're not listening to it in the reading. So we're going to stop there and we'll go to the 10s next class. But let's do a couple readings so that you can play with the cards. So put your cards together up in, don't put your 10s together. Leave the 10s out for next class. But all the other cards we have, aces to the 8s now. You should have in a pile. And you'll have more than half of the deck. Look at that. That's a nice size deck. So leave the 10s out for this week. And yeah, nice, hey? Now we get to try to read these. First thing I want to do is have you practice yes and no's. Okay? Because they're really important to understand. So shuffle your cards that you have, just the aces to 10s, and ask a yes and no question. Okay? So let's ask, what should we ask about? Do we have something lucky coming this month? Will we experience good luck this month? So shuffle your cards up, and then pull out 3 cards, okay? And ask, will you experience some good luck this month? So I pulled my 3. Do you have 3? Oh my gosh. So my first card, oh, here, I'll unmute. Did you hear? I got 3 of swords for my first one. And then I got the 6 of pentacles. And then look, the 2 of cups. So when you take a look at those, I have 2 positive cards in it, 1 negative. So that's a yes. Let's see what you have. Mrs., are you going to be lucky this week? So it's something.
I have the 8 of swords.
Beautiful.
I have the 8 of swords, the 7 of wands, and the 7 of cups.
So 8, 7, and 7. So 8 of swords. I'm trying to see them because I just went through them all. The 7 of pentacles.
No, the 8 of swords is my first card, the 7 of wands, and the 7 of cups.
7 of wands and the 7 of cups. Okay. So let's look at that. I have to look at them to see them. Let me see you. Do you have your card still?
Yes.
Okay. Show me. Okay, I got the 7 of wands, the 7. We need the 8 of swords, and the 7 of cups. Oh my gosh! So this represents, yeah, there is luck around you, but you have to act and choose where you would choose it. Luck is around you, and the 7 of cups. That's what you want. So declare it. Indecisiveness, remember? So indecision. And because you have 2 7s, that represents a transformation happening as well. So there is finances that there's luck to coming. That's a yes. So let's do another yes and no question. So we're going to do 3 more cards. What do you want to know? A yes or no question.
I don't know.
Okay, do you have a spirit guide around you? Yes or no? And we'll pull 3 cards, okay? Is there a spirit guide around me or you? We pull 3 cards. Oh my gosh, look at what I got, the first one. And I was asking on you. So that represents 4 spirits around you. That is awesome. Oh, you got another 4. Yes, there's 4 spirits. You got 2 4s.
I got the...
And look at the help of balancing things out for you. You have 4 spirits at work. They're all trying to balance things out. There's 6 influences at play that are changing for you. So yeah, what did you get?
Wow. I got the 8 of cups, 9 of cups, and the 9 of staffs.
Oh my gosh. So you got 8, 9, 9?
Yes.
And the last one you got 8, 7, 7. So numbers are definitely, and automatically, because you see them going from 8, 9, 9, because there's a transformation happening spiritually, and it also represents growth because you're going up in numbers. That's huge. So there's definitely help
Wow.
around you. And the nines, those represent the mastery that's taking place with them. So that is a yes. That's good. So let's do 3 cards on this week.
Wow.
So do you see how when you look at them, you can get a yes or a no? No's always look like negative cards. You're going to, for no's, you're going to get like dark black cards or the gray cards. If you get 3 gray cards, then you usually know like something is not in the making. But when you get the bright cards that are blue and yellow, and positive, then you know those are always yeses. Right? Fives always show a no, because that's like the conflicting card. So if you get lots of 5s, then you know, okay, I'm going to wait and ask for more information or ask tomorrow. Okay? So let's do 3 cards on the energy we will be experiencing this week. So 3 cards on the energy we're going to experience this week. And then I'm going to keep these notes for next week to see what's happened that is in regards to this energy. Ooh. Oh my gosh. So, I got Ace of Wands. So something that is new that has to do with money and career and enterprise. So a new beginning. And look at this. Something that is going to remove the pain of the past. And it represents 2 good things. And this represents being able to turn around from the things that are affecting us emotionally. And then we have, look at this, the mental stuff. So we have to be aware of making sure we get our time to rest and break free from everything we're taking care of. So pay attention to your sleep patterns this week. I will be too. But it does show resolution over difficulties. So it's actually a good reading. That's what the universal force is trying to help us with. What did you get?
I got the 6 of coins, the 6 of pentacles, 6 of coins, the 2 of coins,
Wow.
and the 9 of wands.
Okay.
Yeah, 9 of wands.
Awesome. So that means the 6 of Pentacles, that's a balancing card, and actually receiving balance. And you also have the 2 of Pentacles, which is a balancing card. So lots with your finances, and also putting it, like balancing it, but balancing it correctly so that you're feeling on top of it. And then we have the 9 of Wands, which is something in action that does have to do with making a decision to deal with it. So there is something that we do have to deal with this week. And we don't want to. But that's what is around us. And this is the time of releasing, so I'm sure we'll do good with it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So take a look, practice cards, okay? And so this week we have money in play, and we have the wands, which is something it's leading us to something we're meant to be doing. So keep in mind on that. So practice yes and no readings.
I don't have class 2 class.
Sorry?
Are you going to be sending me class 2 recorded?
Oh, it should have been sent to you. I'll make sure I send it right now. From last week.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I'll send you this week's
I
too.
don't think I got it.
Okay. Yeah, I will then. Sorry.
Okay.
Perfect. So practice yes and no's and looking at the suits that are in play. Okay? So you could even
I know.
pick one, you can even just pick one card and see what the suit is for the day as well. But just play with them in those different ways. Yes, no, and then you'll see what you get for the day. Okay?
Yeah, I got a little journal of what I write down in the daytime, what 2 cards I pick and the pick of the day and
Perfect. Awesome. Well, then we'll see you at the next class. You take care,
Okay.
and I'm going to see you Friday.
thank you very much.
Can't wait till Friday.
Friday.